James, great to see you. Appreciate you joining today. Tell us a little bit more about your story and some of your journey.
Absolutely. So thanks for having me, by the way. Never done one of these. Me if I make any mistakes, but I appreciate you having me on. Oh, do you want me to start?
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
start
no
with my,
worries.
yeah, I can start with my story. Yeah, with my story. Yeah, no, absolutely. So James Sparks, I'm a senior vice president of sales in at NetJets. I am actually an attorney by trade, which is pretty interesting. I call myself a recovering attorney because that's what we call ourselves. But I worked in sales in college, loved it, did door-to-door sales, sold security systems door to door, which you've never done door-to-door sales. It'll humble you real quick. But had some success there, saw some things that I was like, hey, this is a good way to get my feet wet with sales. I also realized that's not what I wanted to do with my life, is walk around in the heat, the Texas heat. And so I went to school to be a lawyer. Loved that for about 2.5 seconds or so after I became a lawyer, and worked for a large telecom company in town, more on the acquisition side and the lease negotiation side, which is, really got more of a commission-based role, which I appreciated. And then met a guy that worked at NetJets, and I was a young lawyer that didn't want to be a lawyer, and he looked like he was having a lot of fun selling jets. And so I took him out to lunch and networked with him. And about 3 years after that, they were hiring a second salesperson. And so he asked me to come interview for it. And so I did. And that was February of 2020, which was an interesting time to start at a new company because a month later the world shut down. So, and NetJet shut down as well for about a month. And then as soon as people kind of got a little more comfortable, we started flying at record paces and we haven't slowed down since. So that's how I got where I'm at here.
Love it. I don't hear the attorney background as much going into sales, so that's definitely unique. We'll have to dive deeper into that. And then, okay, so you've been now in NetJets the last 5 or 6 years or so. Tell us a little bit more about your current role. Do you have a team?
Yeah.
Individual contributor? What all are you doing there?
No, absolutely. So I run the Southeast Texas and Arkansas. We split Arkansas, but the Southeast Texas territory of NetJets. I have a partner, a business partner that he's my 50-50 partner. His name's Josh, and we split everything in this part of the country. And then we have a sales consultant that works for us, not really for us, but works on our team. And he's more of our inside sales guy. He's calling and emailing, blasting emails, trying to help generate leads for us. We also have an account executive on our team, and her name's Erin, and she works for really with our existing customers. Once Josh and I sell a customer, she brings them on and really he takes over that relationship with us. We stay in the relationship, but she helps us with the day to day to try to just keep those relationships good, and then she helps us with renewals and things like that as well. So there's a team of four of us here, and then in Columbus, Ohio, we have a team of management as well that we report to.
Okay, great. And then what does that sales process look like? I would imagine you're probably with pretty high net worth folks
Yeah.
that are leasing out these planes and what have you. But is it a short sales cycle, long sales cycle? What does that look like?
Yeah, it definitely varies. And so NetJets, the nice part about NetJets is that we are the premier brand in this space. I mean, we are the gold standard of aviation. That's not just me being a sales guy. It's just we've been around since 1964. We are the oldest and largest private aviation company in the world. All of that brings name recognition, which is really, really great for us. I would say the hard part is that there's about 1,000 small companies out there that the first words out of their mouth are, "Hey, we're cheaper than NetJets." And so our biggest struggle is, "Hey, I have to convince you to pay a little more sometimes for the best product," and that isn't always the easiest process. And so I'd say sales cycle wise, I have sales that we've made same day. Typically, that is not normal. I would say the typical sales process is at 3 months to almost a year, even depending on how big the product is. So what we sell fractional ownership in brand new jets, and so that's what we specialize in. Instead of buying an entire aircraft that you probably don't need, which most people don't, you can buy to your actual need. You can buy as little as 50 hours all the way up to thousands of hours per year on a specific aircraft. We also do leasing, and then we have a jet card is more like a prepaid Visa card. You buy a block of hours and you fly them and you're done. And so depending on the product, like a jet card might be a day. Fractional ownership is not typically a day. I'd love for them to be that short, but I have customers that it took me 3 years to close. Some large Fortune 100s. It took me 3 years to close, and then I have companies that I've sold in less than a week. So it definitely varies, depending on where they're at in the buying cycle for sure.
Understood, makes sense. And then
Yeah,
you started at an interesting time. You said the beginning of or right before COVID happened. So
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah,
even in the last 5 years, what have you seen change in sales? Or I mean, how have you guys had to adapt and do things differently? Because a lot's changed since
for sure.
all that happened. Anything come to mind
Yeah.
for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, NetJets, you know, I will say this, COVID was terrible. We don't want that to ever happen again. But it was very beneficial to the private aviation world just because the way that the commercial airlines are, they responded in their mess, it really pushed people to private aviation. The stat that always floated out there was about 10% of people that could afford to fly private actually flew private. I don't know what that number is today, but I promise you it's, 3, 4x of that. And so COVID completely transformed us. We used to do, call it 400 flights on a normal day in a week. We're averaging 600 to 800 flights a day right now. I mean, we have just completely blown up. Our fleet has doubled probably in the last 6 years. Our sales teams have grown. And that doesn't mean it hasn't brought challenges. We had a lot of challenges several years ago. We didn't shut down anything, but we had to tailor some of our products because the manufacturers actually couldn't make planes fast enough for us. We were selling jets at such a high clip that the manufacturers couldn't keep up, and so that really helped made us kind of pull back on some other products and focus on others just while we were waiting on them to catch up. The good news is we have great manufacturer partners, and they've really caught up, and they've done a really good job of meeting our demand now. But we still today we're selling. If you came to me and wanted to buy fractional ownership, you can fly immediately, but you'd put a deposit down, and you probably wouldn't have a plane available till the end of this year or next year for your actual fractional purchase, just because we're so far sold out. But the good news is you can still fly immediately on one of our interim programs. But before COVID, you would give me money and your plane would deliver the next week. Now you're 6, 9 months out. And that's not because the manufacturers are behind. That is because of how much we're selling.
Sounds like a good problem to have. That's amazing, amazing
Thanks.
growth.
Yeah.
So it seems like a pretty unique sale, unique industry, and I'm
Yep.
sure there's certain things that really stand out. When you're looking at like the best salespeople you've been around in this industry, or maybe even on your team, what separates them from the rest? Is there any traits that stand out with like the best salespeople you've been around?
And it's a good question. Now, I've several tours in our company that are in sales and then outside of our company. But fortunately for me, my father-in-law has been in sales, his entire career, and he's run companies in their sales, and now he's the president of a trade association. But he has been a great person to rely on from a sales standpoint as well. But inside the company, I have a couple guys. The gentleman that brought me onto the company, he's still here in Houston as well. But his name's Kurt, and he is the king of talk tracks. There is no one in this planet that has better talk tracks than he does. It doesn't always work with everybody's style, but the man sold lots and lots of jets. I mean, he was always top three in our company. Very fast sales cycle. He wanted you, hey, if you're not buying right now, he kind of is moving on to the next guy, and not in a rude way, just like he just was a hustler. He played baseball in college, and that was his personality. And then on the other side of it, our Austin sales guy, he's very different than that, and I lean on him a lot. He's been here for almost 30 years, and he is the opposite of the quick talk tracks. He's the guy that knows everything about this industry, and so he uses his kind of intelligence to to make the sales, and he does. I mean, he's a top three sales guy every single year in our company as well. And so both of those styles have allowed me to kind of make my own. Like I have a lot of good talk tracks, and I can be kind of the fast, super fast sales guy. Then I can also speak to the industry and use that kind of intelligence of the aviation market to help with sales as well. So both of those guys internally have really helped me kind of get to where I'm at today.
It's great, and I think you don't want
Yeah,
to try to replicate those people exactly, right? Because that's
you
not
can't.
your
Yeah,
personality necessarily. So you take
for
some of the
sure.
best things from both sides of it and make it
Absolutely.
your own, and use the lawyer background too, because that's something different that people probably remember. So no, I think
Yeah.
that's key though. Is you gotta learn from all those different people, but not try to replicate it verbatim.
Sure.
And
You never will be. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. What was
Yeah.
the hardest part of that transition though? Going back to the going from CPA accounting, or no, not CPA, but accounting to sales. What I'm sure you probably made some mistakes out of the gates. It wasn't easy. It was a little awkward. But what was the hardest part of that transition for you, going from your original career to
Yeah.
sales?
No, I mean, honestly, that part wasn't that hard just because I've been a sales type mind. I truly believe that you can't teach sales to someone that doesn't have a sales brain. I teach someone to be a very good salesperson that has a little bit of a sales brain. But there are just people that just their brains do not function the way a salesperson's functions, and mine has always functioned that way. And so that part was easy. I would say the hardest part was just being in this industry. I come from a single parent home. My mom never made over $50,000 a year. I did not know what a private jet looked like. So that part was the struggle for me is that, and Kurt, he sat me down one time and he said the biggest thing you have to get over is you have to look someone in the eye and say, "Hey, this costs 5.5 million," and not apologize for it. Like, it's going to be 5.5 for purchase and this, or I just made that number up, by the way. I don't know what costs 5.5, but but he just said like that, those big numbers are something that you can't shy away from because the people you're talking to, they're used to those numbers. But growing up in a world that does not, those numbers did not register with me. That part was a struggle for me of not apologizing for my pricing. And that's what he told me. He's like, don't apologize because you have a product that is worth this much money. Don't apologize for being expensive. And I struggled with that at the beginning. I would say a price and I'd be like, but we could go probably lower, like immediately. That's like when I first started. And he's like, never say that again. Like you don't want to be a discount product. That's what you don't want to be. And there's a lot of that in this industry. And NetJets is not for sure.
That's a great point. It's
Yeah.
really showing that value over the price and not apologizing for it. And that can be tough, especially if you had a different background to your point. And I'm sure you really believe in the company and the product, so it's much easier now as you've been there. Going back a little bit to the sales process, so for the longer sales cycles, where do things usually get stuck in
Yeah.
the deals? Is it just keeping the momentum? Is it getting the next step? Is it, you send a proposal over, get ghosted, never hear anything back? Like where do things go off the rails or get stuck on those longer sales cycles?
Yeah, for sure. I think every salesperson, even if it's 5 or 5,000 that listen to this video, will know that getting ghosted is a big thing. So we get ghosted in this industry big time too. And it actually amazes me, no matter how wealthy someone is, if they don't want to do it, they're just scared to tell you. And not everybody, but like sometimes if someone just calls me and tells me that it's they're not doing it, it's the best thing ever. I actually thank them for it. I'm like, thank you for just calling me and saying this doesn't interest you or it's not the right time. You'd be surprised how many people I'm talking all the way to the billionaire status, they'll just ignore you because they just don't they feel awkward. They don't want to tell you that they don't want to do it. And so, where things get hung up for us is just that communication breaks where they are ghosting for a little bit, but you have to stay on them. And a lot of times, our clients are just super busy. And not every salesperson is probably talking to someone that's busy. But then you think about who I'm selling to. I mean, some of these people are running Fortune 100 companies, and the last thing on their mind right now is answering my email or call. And so, but where things stall is that we lose communication, and then we aren't following up enough. And there's a fine line between following up and bugging someone, right? And that's really the tough part about sales. You don't want to be, you're not. I don't want to call it an industry because of who's listed, might be listed as, but there are certain products that like it's just like everything's always on sale. You're always calling, and they know that, right? And that's not this industry. And so you have to really be careful how much you're bugging them because you don't want to sound desperate for their business because NetJets is not desperate for their business, but we want their business. But it's just a fine line of how much can I communicate. So I'd say where it stalls is that we're probably not communicating enough, or we've over communicated and they've kind of shied off from it, right? And so, but I've had people. I just made a sale last week that they ghosted me. I thought they were ghosting me for 4 or 5 months. And all of a sudden, I just got an email that morning because he wasn't ghosting me. He just had other things on his mind. And, but us staying in touch triggered that brain. And a lot of what I do is all timing. Just, I triggered his brain with an email and immediately he was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Let's go. So anyways, that's where things stall for sure is not finding that balance of communication.
Yeah, and you made a great point too about people don't like to deliver bad news, whether
Yeah.
it's somebody really high net
Yeah.
worth or just every day you see in dating or sales. So that's where
Yep.
ghosting is just really, people avoid delivering bad news. But for salespeople, that's not good because then you're chasing deals that are potentially never going to close, and it's like this vicious cycle. So the
Yep.
sooner you can get that news one way or the other, the better. And yeah, totally agree. There's a balance of being persistent, adding value. Maybe some of those emails you're talking about, you're just purely adding value, not asking for anything. It's there's an art and a science to that for sure, and it's very industry specific too, based off timing and everything you talked about. Awesome, man. Well, a little bit of a pivot here. I'm sure everyone's excited to hear about AI more. Not that we don't hear about it every day with every part of society,
Sure.
but there's no doubt it can be a little confusing. It's overwhelming, especially in the sales arena where
Mhm.
you just hear about it all the time. But if you look at some of the what's going on right now, companies are bringing it in. Sales reps are really hard to change. Some people
Yep.
fight this to the death because they don't
Yeah.
want to change what they're doing.
Sure.
But there's no doubt there's areas where it can help potentially. I was just curious, what's been your thoughts so far on AI? Does it help you with anything day to day?
Yeah.
Have you been looking at stuff, or what's been your perspective?
Oh, AI has been great personally. I would say as a NetJets whole, we haven't implemented it too much yet, and that's mainly from a data security thing. I'm pretty sure that like that we, as you can imagine, we handle very, very important data of our customers and things like that. And I think that the data security part of it, the more that AI develops, the more secure that we will have, access to. So that side of things hasn't developed yet, but from a personal side of it, I prospect with it every day. I ask Copilot, give me the last 10, the biggest houses that sold in Houston, over the last month. Give me top 10 PE back deals that happen, and it pumps out right there for me. Like, hey, these are the firms that did it. Tell me the last 10 acquisitions that happened over $100 million in Houston. And so I'm typing that in always, and trying to get those lists. I've also used it for, a big push for me being a lawyer is trying to get into the legal world. And so I'll law firm ABC, I will go to their website, and sometimes it's hard to scroll through all of their, and so I'll throw it into AI just to help me get lists, so I can prospect them easier and things like that. And so I've used AI from a prospecting side of things a lot. I would say this. I hope I'm not jumping to another question of yours, but one of something you and I talked about before this was where people screw up with AI, and I'd say that what I've found is making these generic AI emails are like they're killing you from the first time you send it. Like that doesn't mean you can't use AI for emails. I absolutely do that to help you with grammatical errors and things like that. But when I get an email from Joe Blow selling, and I could tell in 2 seconds that they didn't write that email. It's deleted. And so for me, I'm trying so they see that I'm a real person. Even if I'm using AI in the process, I don't want them to think that some AI bot is selling NetJets to them because that's not the case.
Yeah, those are some great use cases. I think if it's anything that's a manual task, right? If you're a sales leader, a salesperson, something manual that takes a ton of time, like list building or doing research or some of the prospecting, that's the stuff that can really bog people down. And next thing you know, you're spending 10 or 20 hours a week doing that. And it
Yep,
feels good because you're like making progress, you're being busy. But is that
sure.
really a great use of your time if you could, maybe click a few buttons and get
Yeah,
90% there without having to manually do that? So I think
yep,
what is really holding you back the most throughout the week, that manual task that's adding a ton of time that isn't revenue generating? So your example was great about list building, research, so fast compared to 4 or 5 years ago, trying to pull that type of stuff. And then
yep,
you think about preparation and follow up. There's so many things that go into that. So that's where I think it can provide the most value for sales teams and salespeople to have more time in front of the customer. Because ultimately, like we're all betting on ourselves that we can close deals, get it to the finish line, the more you're there. And some of that stuff can hold you back or burn you out too. I mean, I know a lot of people that just get burnt
sure.
out from that side of it, and then they're not their full
Yep,
self when they're in front of the customer. So that's how I try to look at it. what are you thinking over the next 5 years? I mean, it's moving very rapidly. I don't think personally that it's going to replace salespeople, but I do think the people that know how to use it to their advantage will probably float higher to the top and stay there. What do you think on that part?
And obviously, it's industry specific, and I do think AI will replace some things, right? That if it's a very standard product that you don't really need to consult on it. Like, hey, I want to buy a mattress. Here you go. That's not, and there's still some value there with mattress salesmen. But my point is, like, if it's with NetJets, the value we bring is that you'll call in and think you need a 25-hour jet card, and then reality is you need this bigger product, and so and it might not even be on the plane that you think, and so where a NetJet salesperson is going to continue have to adapt is that you have to use AI to your advantage. Because to your point is you might not get replaced by it, but the person that will replace you knows how to use AI. And that's what been my motto is like, hey, I don't think AI will ever replace my job because I don't think it can. But I do think that someone that knows how to use AI better could replace my job. You know what I mean? And I think that that is something over the next 5 years that if you just resist to these technologies, you're gonna get left behind. Now, there's still some old school salespeople in our industry, and like in my company, that will crush it. They still crush it, and it's just because they have a book of business that they know how to call on, and they are the very best once you get them on the phone. But unfortunately, we might get to a point in this world where people don't want to be on the phone as much, and they want to be more, interacting just digitally, and that's going to have to be something that you're going to have to adjust to. But I'd say AI as a whole, I mean, I feel like it came out of nowhere, but in 5 years, no telling what it's going to be doing for us. And so hopefully we can use it to our advantage. And now we will. The nice part about NetJets is that we're always out in front of just advancements with stuff like this. And like I said, we already have a team, I'm sure, of hundreds of guys up and girls working on ways to make NetJets better, with whether it's logistics or our flight planning, things like that. We already have stuff working on that because we're always ahead of things. Even if the salesperson, I'm down the totem pole, even if I don't know about it, I know for a fact that our large Berkshire Hathaway company is way ahead of the curve when it comes to trying to adapt to that. So I think over the next 5 years, you'll definitely see it just implemented where it just makes everybody better if you know how to use it properly.
No doubt. There's a quote, technology is undefeated, basically saying like if you look at all the big examples over time, you at some point you just can't fight it. Like it's gonna it's gonna happen. So you just have to adapt to it. Like how does it help you? How does it
Absolutely.
make you better?
Absolutely.
If you keep fighting it, if you're later in your career, you can probably get away with it because it won't
Yeah.
matter. But if you're young, early in your career, you're probably gonna have to adapt. So very well said. Well, a couple more questions for you
Yeah.
just to round out here. If you had to give yourself a piece of advice to your younger
Mm.
self, breaking into all this stuff, what would that advice be, or any advice that might help younger salespeople in their career?
Yeah. No, I was thinking about this. I mean, you and I had spoke about that question before, and I was really thinking on, I started, like I said, I did the door-to-door sales. I think that's super important to do some kind of Cutco, like you mentioned, we talked about before, security systems, pest control. I think that that is the best way to. Now, I'm not saying if you're a 40-year-old in the middle of your career, go do that. That's tough to do, right? But it is. But these commission-only roles that make you grind just turn you into a hustler. And I think that the number one thing to be successful at sales is a hustling mindset. That doesn't mean hustling like you're hustling people. That just means hustling as in you're working hard and you're always thinking about the next. You have to be thinking about how to grow to the next step. And so, uh, Kurt, the guy that was my mentor here locally, he told me that you have two choices to make a lot of money in sales. You can sell something small and sell a lot of it, a whole lot of it. Like whatever trinket that you have to sell thousands and hundreds of thousands of them to make a lot of money, or you find one big thing to sell. And so, fortunately, NetJets kind of lets me do both. We sell a lot of a very large thing, but you know, I think when you're starting at sales, you need to be in a commission only mindset that you need to struggle a little bit. I think a lot of people they jump into sales and they're like, they're surprised that it's not as easy as it made it sound. I've been into companies before, not NetJets, but companies in the past where people resented the salespeople or the negotiators because they made more money. And I'm like, listen, how about you start year one with $0, and then you have to like everything that you kill, you eat. It's stressful, and it's not something that everyone can do. And so I would say a piece of advice for younger salespeople is just that you need to be in those struggle entry level sales roles to see if you like sales, because not everybody likes sales. There's nothing wrong with having a steady salary, knowing that when you go home at 5 you're getting paid X dollars no matter what. There's nothing wrong with that. But I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That really changed my mindset in life, and I'm sure that every salesperson here, if you haven't read it, go read it right now. And it changed my mindset of like, hey, it's okay if you have this 9 to 5 and yeah, but if you have a sales mindset, you need to find a company that doesn't put a ceiling over your head, and then go reach whatever heights that you want to reach. And so, anyways, that was kind of long-winded, but I would say the biggest advice though is you need to have an entry level. If you're early in your career, you need to struggle, and you need to see how much it kind of sucks to do commission only roles like Cutco or security systems, because you will learn so much about yourself, and you might learn that you don't want to be in sales. That's okay too. But if you succeed in that, you're going to make it. And then now go find a company that's going to reward you. Never find a company that punishes you for more sales. That's another advice. If you're in a company that caps you or tries to limit you, you need to get out. Take off running tomorrow is what you need to do. You need a company that treasures their sales team, which NetJets does. NetJets, all they do is compliment, how hard we work. And sales goes so much further in NetJets. It goes all the way down to, we have sales operations, we have marketing. We really look at sales as an entire kind of company, because we all are selling NetJets. And so if you're in a company that doesn't really treasure net salespeople, you need to get out quick.
Totally agree that those commission
Yeah,
only environments can be brutal. They teach you a lot. You
they
learn
are.
way more from the tough times than you do the good times. And
Yeah,
just the social media society that we're in, it's all glamorized and you see all the good things, but you don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. And it's usually a
for
long game
sure.
in sales. You're not going to get that instant short-term wins as often. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. All right, what closing out here, what's something you're really excited about for the rest of this year? It could be personally, professionally, anything big you're working on or really excited about?
Yeah, no, I think we're like I mentioned, we're having a good year so far. Personally, I want to continue to grow. NetJets is one of those careers that like you actually can be here your whole career, which is pretty crazy. Like a lot of jobs, you're always looking for the next thing, and that's I used to be that way. And so NetJets for me is like I'm just excited to see where we end up. From a professional standpoint, Houston and Texas and in general is a great place to be in sales. And so I'm excited to see where we end up. And then from a personal side of things, I have 3 young girls, all under 6 years old, and so they keep me on my toes. So I would say just making it out of the year alive is always an accomplishment on my end of things. But no, I'm excited. We're having a great year, and it's a great time to be alive in sales for sure. So we're excited to keep chugging along.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you joining.
Yeah,
For those that want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? LinkedIn or
yeah.
how should they reach
LinkedIn.
out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I will say that, the best way to get a hold of me is sending me a nice message and like, hey, saying like why you're connecting, shooting me an invite, and I don't know who you are. It's probably going to get a rejection just because I get a lot of them just randomly. And I'm sure you do too. Everybody does, right? And I never know who's spam and who's a bot. But if you had sales questions or, questions about NetJets in general, like just reach out to me, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to anybody.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you joining.
Absolutely, Dustin. Have a great day.